All right, this week we're back for another racket stringing tips special here. Last week we went over the 9 proven strategies to scale your stringing business, and we kind of touched on all the different 9 components and kind of went over them pretty quickly. So as we were going through that, we were realizing that we really need to go deeper into these areas, especially when we're talking about stringing machines and just specific strategies. So I think we're going to really be able to get into some specific strategies. And specifically today, we're going to get into upgrading your equipment, which basically means your stringing machine, and really the most effective electronic stringing machines. There's a whole myriad of stringing machines out there, and depending on where you're at right now, whether you are getting started and you have a drop weight machine, or you kind of are having you've gotten into the electronic machines, or you're thinking about it, or you're currently with the standard machine that is a lockout machine. So this is kind of like getting you to think about the questions to ask, why should you even upgrade, and kind of what's the next step, and what are some things out there that make stringing easier. So, with that, hi, Brad, how are you doing today?
Good, Pat. Good to be back here with you.
Yeah. I mean, we got a lot to cover today, so we'll just kind of get into it, and we'll just kind of take turns and share kind of what we know from experience. And basically, I've been stringing rackets for probably over 25 years now, and I have strung on a wide variety of machines. Many of them were the lockout kind. In the early days, I had an Alpha machine. At different clubs, I strung on the Ectalon machines that had the glide bars, and then later on, those advanced to the Neos models, which were maybe a little bit more efficient, but nonetheless, they were still the lockout machines, and they had the stand, and so they were your typical machine that the shops would carry. Right back then, that was kind of a standard. That would have been in the 90s. That was kind of standard for a lot of shops and for a lot of tennis shops. And then when I opened a shop up, right away we went and got the Babolat Star 3. I remember got that brand new from the rep, and I believe I think it was $3,700, and that's that was a lot of money back then, right? Came with some string, and of course you buy into the different. At that time, you were buying into different programs, so you would buy a certain amount of string, and then get some discount on the machine, and then of course all the stuff that comes with that. So that was I just love that machine. I traveled with that machine to different tournaments as well. Later on, I bought one for personal use, and I took it to China, and I took it to a bunch of tournaments in LA as well, California, and it was a good tournament stringer. That and the Star 4 circulated for quite some time in the early days, like in the 90s and the early 2000s. The Star 4 was used quite a bit because you could put it on a table and put string out of a hotel room. And even the organization Priority One, which strings for some of the pros that they contract with, even until recently when Federer retired, I think they were still using a Star 4 that was used for many years. And so you don't always need the latest and newest equipment, but you do need something that is consistent and is not going to break down. And if it does, you need to be able to get parts, and you need to be able to get parts quickly, and have somebody be able to know how to fix the machine, right? So those are just some basic things. And I think it all comes down to what you're buying a machine for or upgrading for, what the purpose is. And I think hopefully today we'll be able to go through some of those things so that you can kind of ask yourself those kind of questions. So just finishing up on my journey with the stringing machine. So after that, so I had experience at several clubs stringing on the Star 4, the Star 5 even. I had a Gamma electronic machine back in the day as well. I even had a Star 2, which is a really heavy machine. But the thing with the Babolat machines back then were the mounting system was just so easy. That 6-point mounting, you just basically had two knobs that you secured and then inner knobs, and you could mount the racket in just a matter of seconds, and it would be secure, and you didn't have any trouble doing that. So that's kind of what I liked about the Babolat machines early on. But then later on, I ended up with many tournaments stringing on the Bayardo, the Wilson Bayardo machine. I've strung on the Technofiber machines, the Prince electronic machines, some Yonex machines as well. So there's just all those. So I got a little bit of experience with most of those kind of machines. At one time, I did get a Clipper Mate 2, which was just the drop weight machine, just to kind of see how that was with the flying clamps. So I think I can go pretty deep as far as having some experience with these machines, and when I'm talking about it. So that's kind of my experience with stringing machines over the years. There's not one size fits all. Sometimes it just comes down to preference and how it feels for you and stuff. So I don't know, Brad.
Yeah, I mean, I was always, I don't have the tournament experience that you have, so I was always kind of using the machine that I had. And I think our first machine was probably the Clipper Mate. Was that the one that was maybe $100 back 30 years ago?
Yeah, it's still the same thing. The yellow machine with the drop weight.
Yeah, I think it took a couple hours for me to learn, from that machine when I was 12, 13 years old. But then I did have the Prince electronic machine for a little bit that we bought used from someone. And then the machine that we had for like 20 years that I actually traveled with when I played satellite tournaments in the mid 1990s was the Ectalon, the lockout with the hand crank. And that was a great machine. I was probably strung a couple thousand rackets on that machine. I would string it to satellite tournaments. I don't know. I think I was charging $7 or $10 a racket. But then recently, the last 3-4 years, when I started my home stringing business, I started with the Gamma Progression ELS, which I liked quite a bit. And I still have that, but I decided to upgrade at one point. Once I started doing 40, 50 rackets a month, I wanted to treat myself, and so I bought a Bayardo, which I love, and that's my main machine that I use now. And I do, now I'd say I'm up to maybe average 70, 75 rackets a month, and it's a nice machine to string on. So that's kind of where I am as a home stringer. I might do, probably 900 plus rackets this year.
Yeah, and it sounds like the return on investment there is definitely there. I mean, you spend $4,000, $5,000 on a Wilson Bayardo, or even $6,000 depending on where you're buying it, and you've got to figure out as far as a return on investment, is it going to be worth it? If you figure out, okay, well, this machine should last me 5-10 years, or actually longer than that, but if you're trying to just price it out for, let's say, 5 years, wow, that's almost $1,000 a year, so that's probably about $80 a month that I'm paying for this. So if I string 100 rackets at $20, that's $2,000.
It took me about 3.5 months to pay it off.
Yeah. And so if you're doing it over the long haul, just figuring out how much extra every month, what's that return on investment? And it sounds like in your case, it was definitely worth it. If you're just getting started and you're like, I'm only going to be stringing 5 rackets, a month or whatever, you might think about, well, maybe now's not, it might not be worth it, for a shop, definitely, especially if you've got several stringers working, and you've got the volume to make it work and stuff. But yeah, that's I had that Bayardo for a while, and then so it's a good machine. So yeah, let's get right into it then. So these are the things. So I was kind of thinking about how can we really help someone who wants to upgrade their stringing machine. What kind of questions would I be asking, and what kind of questions do I ask myself when I'm looking to upgrade or when I'm looking to buy a machine? And so I came up with these 10 things, and I think it covers a good I think it goes deep enough where it covers the majority of things that might come up some way or another. So number one, well, if we can kind of run through them all real quick here. So number one, precise tension control. Number two, sturdy frame mounting system. Number three, ease of use. Number four, what kind of clamping system. Number five, speed of, the tensioning head and how quickly it's pulling. Durability, how durable is it? Portability, is it heavy? Is it lightweight? Is it going to be able to transport easily? Stringing patterns. And that's more, when we get into that part, that's going to be more like, do you plan on stringing badminton or racquetball or squash? And does the system accommodate that, or do you have to buy an additional piece for it, or will it not even work with the machine? Calibration, is it easy to calibrate? How accurate is it just in general? And then warranty and support, right? Because if you can't get any support on it, it's not going to be worth paying $5,000 for a stringing machine, right? So these are the kind of things I was thinking about when I am looking to upgrade, or when I'm talking to somebody about stringing machines. All right, so the first thing, precise tension control. So we know there are a lot of machines out there, and when we're talking about the drop weight machines, right, there's really only one. There's not a whole lot of different types of tension controls on that. It's basically, once you secure the string, you have a weight that you basically manually move, and it locks it at some point. So that's not really a big discussion here with the tension control. When it comes to the lockout, those are mostly the same as well. You basically, once you secure the string in the Diablo or in the gripper, and then you basically crank it until it locks out, that's basically the tension control, right? But when you're talking about computerized machines, there's lots of different ways that they handle tension control. Some of them use the Diablo, where you would, like, you can see a few of these have a Diablo and a few of them don't, right? So some of the Gamma machines, I don't know, is the progression, does your progression look like this, or is it a normal?
The progression is just like that.
Yeah, so you might want to explain this part, because I know that you put it in there and then the wheel actually turns until it gets.
You wrap it around, you do almost like a 360 top clockwise, and then when you get toward almost to the 360 part, you slide it through, and that tight, that's kind of the tight, so it cranks. So you do need a bit of extra string, especially at the end when you're tying the knot, to wrap it all the way around and then slip it through. You see that kind of sliver at the top, right, going across. Slide the string in there, and then that kind of grips it and pulls it through.
Yeah, I mean, and it works and it's efficient. I think the reason why those machines came about, because I know Gamma uses that in a lot of their machines. My thought on that is because when you use the Diablo and you use the string, the string gripper inside of the mechanism there, it sometimes crushes the string, right, if it's not done properly or whatever. So I don't know if Gamma came up with this system because this doesn't tend to crush the string like that, because it's pulling it like in a circular motion, right?
Yeah,
but
I don't know that either.
But I don't like that system. So for me, I'd be like, no, I'm looking at using a Diablo with the standard, gripper and pull system, and there's usually a lever behind that you can push down, and it's nice and easy. You do it with one finger, which then controls the tension head. And for many of the machines, you have different speeds of tension, because depending on what type of string you're using, if you're using natural gut, you can string a little bit slower. When you use tie-off knots, you have a double pull option and different things. So there's different specs and or different what do you call it?
Adjustments or
adjustments and features. Sorry, that's
right.
the word I was looking.
There's easier ways to get to it too. You know, the Biardo is, you know, there's a little bit of you know, going into the interior part of it to change the percentage of pull, you know. So if you're doing natural gut or a sensitive string, like Ashaway mono gut, you may want to pull it at 50%, because some strings are a lot more sensitive.
Yep. And so basically the idea is that you always want a consistent, accurate tension for every time you pull, because otherwise you're not going to have a consistent string job. So that's why when we look at these kind of machines, electronic machines, we want to get a quality machine built by a company that backs it, has a good warranty. And so many times if you're doing heavy volume, you need basically a workhorse, right? That can handle that. And it doesn't, like, the string doesn't get caught in there. It doesn't jam up, things like that. So yeah, so that just kind of gives you a little idea of the different tension heads. The next thing, sturdy frame mounting systems. Okay, this is kind of where I think all three of the different types of stringing machines, whether it's a drop weight, whether it's a constant pull electronic machine, or it's a lockout type machine, they all have different types of mounting systems. And generally a 6-point mounting system is going to be probably the most consistent in keeping the racket in its original form. There's always going to be some moving around of the frame because it has a lot of tension being put on it when you string a racket, right? So it is going to expand a little bit or deflect in certain ways, but the best way that I've found is having a 6-point mounting system. I've seen some electronic machines that only have a 2-point or even a 4-point system. You can see on this one right here that would require the flying clamps on this. This is, I don't know if it's a gamma or alpha or whatever, but you could see it's a 2-point mounting system.
I will say going from a 2 to a 6 absolutely sucks, because when you get used to a 2, you never have to worry about, you know, those other 4 mounting points to get around and stuff. It just seems like, gosh, there's so many corners to go around. And so it is, I mean, I'm in a 6 and I love the, you know, the way that it protects the frame, but I had that Echelon for so long and it just had the support at the head and the throat. And it was just, the rack was wide open. Nothing got in my way.
Yep. And, you know, also when you're talking about, you know, 6-point mounting and you're talking about the rails where the clamps will, you know, with the guides are on the rails down here. So yeah. It's, you know, they're going to be sturdy and they're going to be solid and they're going to stay put, versus with the flying clamp, it's harder to keep the consistency with that. So, you know, there's also different grades of 6-point mounting systems, right? On some of them, there's so many knobs that you have to adjust. It takes a while. It takes you know, more time than it should to secure the frame, right? Some of the older 6-point mounting, you would have knobs on all 6 areas that you would have to secure, or the knobs were small and they were hard to, like, you know, get tight enough, or, you know, it just took a few extra seconds, right, to adjust all of those.
Right,
so
it does.
Think about that. You know, some of the modern machines now, they're designed to only have, you're only going to really be moving 1 or 2 knobs to secure it. And I would definitely stick with that. This one on the bottom here, I saw a picture of this machine. I think it was on Amazon or something. And it's like this little, like these little rails, and then you secure the frame with 4 mounting points, and it's like I think a $200-300 machine, and it's really quirky looking. I mean, I've never seen something like that, but I saw that picture and I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting.
Yeah.
But, you know, they're securing it like that. So Yeah, so that's kind of so having a sturdy mounting system, and the 6-point, I would always recommend the 6-point mounting system. Okay, the next thing, ease of use. How user friendly are the controls, especially with the electronic machines? With the other, with the drop weight or the lockout, there's really not that many features. I mean, you're basically just going to be pulling the string. You're going to have a little knob that you're going to adjust for the tension. But when it comes to electronic machines, you want ease of use. Do you want a touch screen? Some of the machines have touch screen, like the like the Wilson by Ardo, right? I have a picture of it here. It's a touch screen. I don't know if the light version might not be a touch screen, but the regular version has a touch screen. Other machines as well, other times there's just going to be buttons that you push. Can you put the knot, if you wanted to add 5 pounds or 5% to your tie off, do you have a knot button that you can easily just push where it'll push it, it'll pull at that tension just for one time, or do you have to adjust the tension, things like that. Most of the newer machines are going to be pretty consistent with all the same features. But back when I had the Star 3, it was an electronic machine, but it didn't have digital readouts. It was a knob actually that you had to adjust, and it wasn't quite as accurate because you didn't know if it was on 30, if it was on 50 pounds or if it was on 51 pounds exactly sometimes. So
yeah,
definitely a digital readout. And it just kind of, I think, the preference, but I would check that out as you're looking at whatever machine you're looking at. Do you have a preference?
And I've been comfortable with the Bayardo and the gamma progression. They both work. The gamma progression had that button when you just press it when you're ready to pull. The Bayardo, it has a knot that you have to just you add the tension you want. I add 8 pounds. I think Wimbledon for a while was doing 8.5 pounds tighter for the knot. I just set it to 8 pounds, and so I press a button when I'm there, and it tightens at 8 pounds more than what I was doing the rest of the strings.
And when you're starting to look at tournament grade machines, like the Wilson by Ardo is one of them, that it has a lot of features built in as far as being able to adjust it for different stringers, being able to check the accuracy of the tension, being able to make adjustments, internal adjustments, with the computer that you can access. There's just lots of different features with that specific machine that come in handy. Clamping system. All right, so of course most of the electronic machines are going to have 2 rails that have clamp bases, and the clamps attached to that. You can take the clamps out, you can clean the clamps. They easily secure that way. Some of the electronic machines also have 1 clamp system, right? It's a 360 clamp. And whether they're pneumatic or whether they're, a push, some of them are push down secure type clamps. Others are 2-step clamps where you have to secure the clamp and then also the base. So there's different ways of doing that. And there's different benefits to either, right? Sometimes when you drop the clamp, you undo a string, you drop the clamp, it undoes the base, right? Things like that. The floating clamp is only for the machines that don't have rails, because what you do is you have to secure 1 string that you just pulled with the new string, and that's how it keeps the strings from moving. So you have to keep doing that each time, right? And so it's not as consistent of a way of doing it, and it takes a little bit longer, especially once you move from the mains to the crosses, because then you have to make additional adjustments, right? Because now you're going both directions. You're going perpendicular and horizontal on one. So when you have 2 glides that the clamps are on, it's easy to maneuver them and move them whatever direction you need. Some of the bases extend a little bit better than others because in some rackets, it's really hard to get to that last cross sometimes in the corner. And so I know, some machines are maybe a little bit better for that. So those are just things to take into consideration. And then also, does your machine have quality clamps so that you're not, that they don't slip? And do you have the option of replacing the clamps and upgrading clamps? Some are interchangeable as well. You can buy aftermarket clamps, but those are just some things to think about. The speed of pulling and tensioning. For most electronic machines, I think they have variable tensioning. So I would definitely stay away from a machine that only pulled one tension, because then you're not going to have that option if you want to pull a little bit quicker, or you want to slow it down for natural gut or other things.
Yeah.
All right. Durability, built to last with quality materials. Okay, you see some pictures here of, these are some of the main brands that have quality stringing machines, or at least tried and true, have been around for a while, that have good, later we'll talk about, warranty and customer service and so forth. But Wilson, their main stringing machine is the Bayardo or the Bayardo Lite. Okay, so it's going to be one or two of those options. Prince has a few different options, all the way from beginning machines in all the different categories. I have that one actually covered. I can't, oops, sorry, went forward. I have Babolat back here as well. You can't quite see it. I think it's kind of covered up, but Babolat has a variety of stringing machines, and recently they released a few new ones. So there's a few new ones on the market in the U.S. market. Yonex has always had quality machines, but they are a little bit more pricey. They're in upwards of $10,000, $12,000 for some machines, and some of their lower end, I don't want to say lower end, but some of their more affordable ones are in the $4,000 or $5,000 range, I think. Maybe even a little bit less than that. But so they've always have quality machinery. Solinco, that's fairly a new. I think they're fairly new to the game, right? And so they have a few tournaments too, and I think they have a few tournament machines that circulate to those events as well. Technofibers had some quality machines for some time, and they also have some tournament tour representation. Gamma and Alpha, those have a variety of different machines, from the drop weight to the lockout, all the way to the electronic versions. They have models in all those different price categories. So that's a good, I think that's a good start for somebody in the home market, but you're not going to see those machines at tournaments, and you're not going to see them at higher end establishments usually. The ClipperMate, that's the one that we talked about, kind of just your entry level. You're going to string one racket every once in a while, and then you're going to put the machine away, and it stores away in a nice little box. That's just kind of like if you're just getting started. Dunlop has quality machines that are tournament grade that you might see on tour, and as well as Head. So all those, and there might be a few other ones as well. I just tried to touch on some of the main ones that I'm familiar with, but those all have quality stringing equipment. And the best thing, I think, you can go to their websites, to the manufacturer's websites, and you could probably see some information on the machines. Sometimes they don't sell them directly to the public, and so then you have to go through either somebody local with you, or go to a second party retailer that sells them. All right, so portability. This is really important too. I know I talked about this. I mean, if you plan on traveling, whether it's to tournaments or you just move around a lot with your machine, you want it to be portable, then you want something possibly you could put on a table, or that the stand is easy to remove and lightweight. Because if you look at something like the Bayardo, the stand weighs like 80 pounds because it's pneumatic, right? It lifts and adjusts, so it's got a lot of electronics in it. That is not a very portable machine. The thing weighs 140 pounds, I think, total. It is just not portable. Even without the stand, it's not a very portable machine. It's heavy. So if you're putting it in a shop and you're leaving it there, that's fine. It's great. It's not going to move around a lot. But, I know it's used on tour, but, when you have a company like Wilson, they can afford to pay and box them up each time and move them around. And sometimes they actually leave them like, when they used to use them in Australia, they would leave them there somewhere, and they would just be there for the next time, for the next tournament and so forth. And so, that's okay that way. But if you have to travel with that, that's why I used to like the Star 3, the Babolat Star 3, because it was light and it was consistent and it worked. The same with the Star 4. It's easy to put into a secure container, didn't take up that much space, and you could easily ship that and take that with you as even baggage, checked baggage on an airplane. So those are some things to think about when it comes to portability. Brad, any insight?
No, I think it's a really, really important question. You have to ask yourself, do you want to travel, move around with this machine, take it to local tournaments with you? Then you have to, that's going to eliminate some machines by far, or for sure. It's like, I got the Bayardo. I'm not going anywhere with that Bayardo. Now, I also have the Gamma Progression ELS, which is definitely more portable. I can carry that up the stairs myself if I need to. But there are others that are, even more portable.
Yeah. When you put your Bayardo together, did you have help, or did you put it together by yourself? Because I tell you,
my son helped me a little bit.
Yeah, you could hardly even get that thing out of the box by yourself.
Yeah,
it was so heavy.
Yeah,
it was just like, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
So you got to kind of think about that. Like, what's your purpose? Where are you going to have it? Is it going to be moved a lot? Do you want to use it on tour? Things like that, right? So those are some considerations. All right, stringing patterns. And this is kind of more like, what type of sports will your machine handle? Like, if you don't buy the extender, or if you don't buy another part that you need, sometimes you're not always going to be able to string all of these rackets. You're not going to be able to string racquetball, squash, badminton. Generally, racquetball, tennis kind of go together, so you don't need any type of adapters. Squash, I think, also fits into there. So usually tennis, racquetball, squash, you should be able to do. Sometimes with squash and badminton, you're going to need different clamps, because some of the clamps are not always going to be able to go with that. So you might have to also have badminton clamps. If all you're going to do is string badminton, then you might think about getting a specific badminton stringing machine, one that's going to be a little bit more for that. Yonex, is going to maybe be more accommodating, because they have a huge market with badminton, and a lot of their machines, are designed for that as well. You might need some adapters. So find out before you buy the machine, do they have an adapter that you can get so you can string all these types of rackets? So that's just something to keep in mind. And I know, all of them come with stringing tools and everything, but, I'm not going to spend, I don't care about the stringing tools, because, everybody's going to, you're usually going to have your own stringing tools anyways. So I wouldn't be like, oh, wow, well, this machine, has a free, set of stringing tools that come with it,
Right.
That's not usually a selling point for me. So I wouldn't worry about what the stringing tools, but calibration. So you can see this is a general calibrator. We both used to have that. I know you use that as well. It's the electronic one. There's also the Gamma has one that's just a standard manual one, so that you can read. But this is a little bit more exact. And generally, you want to check calibration with that. That's not necessarily a calibrator, but it's to check the calibration. If you have to adjust the calibration, you have to do it inside of your machine, and there's different ways of doing it. So with a lot of the electronic machines, it's pretty easy to do it. Usually there's information in the manual, or you can talk to customer support or warranty department on that if you need to calibrate. But you should know how to calibrate your machine, and you should check the calibration regularly. If you string rackets every day, I would check it once a week at least. I know when we're stringing rackets at tournaments, you're checking the calibration every morning before you even start to make sure it's right. The last thing, warranty and support. Now, this is a good one because there's a lot of machines out there. You go, wow, this is a good deal. This electronic machine for, $2,000, and it's just from some factory in China. It doesn't even have a name on it. It looks pretty good. But I would pay, honestly, I would probably prefer paying double and knowing that I have a warranty, or at least a place I could get parts or somebody that could repair it and easily, and that's not going to break down. So I think that's something you have to ask, like, what's the warranty? For a lot of the machines, if you buy them brand new, there's a 3-year warranty or 5-year warranty. If you're buying a used machine, I would make sure it's a quality machine. I know when I bought that Bayardo, it had been used at some of the tournaments at U.S. Open, and it had already, I think, 4,000 rackets strung on it, or 5,000 or something like that.
Yeah, a lot of better machines have like the equivalent of an odometer on a car, so you know how many pulls it's had.
Yep, and so even with if it's a quality machine, that's fine. That it's had that many rackets strung on it, but you do want to make sure that it is a quality machine that's going to last for a while. If you're buying it new, you definitely want a warranty, and then if you do need to use the warranty, where are you going to ship this and what's the warranty about? And you can find all that out by just either contacting the manufacturer, or in all the sales materials they would have that information. And really, generally, if you want to kind of have a reference of, like, if you want to look at what's out there on the market and you want to see what all the features are, and you want to see what the warranty, what the support is, every so often the United States Racket Stringers Association will come out with an article in their RSI magazine, which is the Racket Stringers Industry magazine. One recently came out, I think it was in August actually of this year, August 24. You do need to be a member to get a hard copy of the magazine, but you can go to their website, and I think you can read it online at no cost. But it kind of actually has the whole list of stringing machines that they looked at and kind of rated, and shows all the different features and the price and who to contact and all that. So you can get that kind of information as well. But if anybody has any questions on any of these things that we covered today, drop us a message. Be happy to go into more detail or connect with you on that, because there's so many new machines coming out. It's hard to stay on top of all the machines, and that's why we're really not going over the specific machines, because I know there's so many new ones out there. Everybody swears by them, but it just kind of comes down to your preference, what your reasoning is for getting these machines. So yeah, any other thoughts on that, Brad?
No, I feel that's a very important consideration, is how is the support. I haven't had to call Wilson for any support with the Bayardo, but I tell you what, I'm nervous if I have to. They're a huge company, and from what I've heard, it's not the easiest, but I'm not going to say anything until I experience it firsthand. I will say with my Gamma, when I first got the Gamma machine, they were amazing. And they're right here in the Northeast in Pennsylvania. I could call. I got to know the kid. They had a couple people that are specifically in charge of stringing. So you have a question, you call up, and hey, Ben, Brad, Rochester, and so you get to know these people, and it was so comforting to have, knowing that I could call someone and speak to them about the question I had. So it is an important, before you buy a machine, call, pretend you already own it. You have a question, call and see how easy it is to reach them.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know there is a company, I think it's out east near you somewhere, tennismachines.com or something like that. They repair and sell used machines that they have, calibrated and refurbished and so forth. And I know they're sometimes a go-to for asking questions and so forth on machines and getting parts and so forth. And so they're a good, outfit that repairs machines. Because sometimes with all the electronics, it's not that easy to do it yourself. And so, there's a lot of, sometimes you can go onto eBay, right? And you look at machines and you're like going, oh yeah, maybe I'd rather just get that Star 4 that's on eBay for really cheap. But it's like, if I have to get a part for that, if I have to get a computer chip for it, or if, am I going to be able to get that, and am I going to be able to get it fixed? And so, you have to be careful if you're looking at buying an old electronic, an electronic machine that's 10, 15, even 20 years old, because, things are going to go wrong, and are the parts still available readily, So those are some things to, I think about.
Absolutely.
So a few other things to consider, right? That maybe we didn't touch on in the other slides is the price, the features, return on your investment, and the purpose of upgrading, right? These are things that you have to figure out for yourself. Like, what's your price range? What features do you really want after all those things that we kind of covered? And, what's that return on investment going to be for you? And is it going to be worth it? And, of course, the purpose in upgrading and so forth. So,
yeah, I will say, I've never really had a customer come up to me, and I probably have 170 customers. No one has ever said, what machine are you stringing on?
Yep.
So it's not like you need the best machine, otherwise you're not going to get the customers. I've never had anyone really that concerned, but I do share with them that I have a quality machine, the same machine they use at some Grand Slam tournaments and other tour tournaments. So, but it's not a huge selling point for your consumer in most cases.
Well, especially in your case, because you've got electronic machines and you've been using them for a while. Now, if you were using just your simple drop weight, some people can definitely tell the difference of a string job that's done on one of those. Then,
True,
I mean,
right.
if you do have the equipment, you might as well brag about it a little bit.
Yeah.
If you don't, keep quiet, right? but that's, if you're in a place where it's visible, the machine's out and visible, you definitely want to have something that says, wow, this guy knows what he's doing and he cares about, his stringing. I could tell with this type of machine that,
Well, you're right. Every time I have a new customer, I have a half a page of like card stock where I have kind of my stringing bio, my credentials, the machine I use, and the quality and about the machine. Where it's the official machine at the U.S. Open, this and that. So every time I do have a new customer, I give them that when I give them their racket with a thank you. And it just, if they want to read about me and the machine and my credentials, then they all have it.
Yep. And I think just kind of concluding today, then, I think we covered upgrading your equipment, upgrading your stringing machine, some 10, I think, good major points that to consider. And I know the second part of this was from last week under number 1 was setting up a separate workstation for each machine. And this isn't going to take a whole lot of time. It's just basically the idea is that if you are scaling your stringing business and you want to add another workstation and another machine, that might be the time to upgrade to a higher end machine, right? So maybe keep the one you have and get something that's a little bit more in line with what we were talking about, and then still keep the other one and then have 2 stations open. It's always good to have a backup anyway, it's good to have even a backup that isn't electronic, just in case, you know, electricity goes out, or you need to have one at another location. So, you know, having two machines could definitely help scale your business. So,
well, just for example, with my Bayardo the other day, I have cats and they were running around like crazy in the basement, and they ran into the cord of my Bayardo and pulled it where it almost ripped in half. You know, fortunately it still works, but now I'm looking at, boy, I better get a backup power cord. If they had broke it in half, I'd have gotten my Gamma out and had to string on that until I get the other power cord. So things happen.
Yep, definitely, right. So yeah, that's scaling your racket stringing business and upgrading your equipment. I think we covered, I think, the key components, and I think that's going to be it for today.
Sounds good. Yeah, if anyone has any questions, they can write them in the comments, and I know you're always good at getting back to them.
Yep, yeah. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Patrick.